You see, something's going to happen. Something wonderful.
My God, it's full of stars.
Welcome to the NY Patriot Show. This episode, I have my buddy Thrash with me again, and we are continuing the MKULTRA series, and this will be episode 3 of this MKULTRA installment. Thrash, what is going on, man? Thank you very much for coming on and continuing this very eye-opening and interesting topic, because I have to say, I think I've probably learned the most about MKULTRA for digging into it myself now, instead of listening or seeing other stuff, or like reading other stuff. It's like, damn, I don't know. I learned a lot about this topic that I didn't know prior, so I think it's been a pretty exciting for me. So
yeah, no, I thought I knew a lot too, and I've been learning all kinds of stuff and finding other rabbit holes that tie into it also. So
yeah, well, you know what it was too. Like, I was coming across doctors that are known. You know what I'm saying? And like some of the stuff that I would even come across with them was a little surprising. But I think it was when I started, I have a couple of people that I'll be talking about in this episode if we get to it, that I just never even heard of. And I was like, this person seemed rather important too. And I was like, damn, how many there probably are that we just don't even know about?
Well, I was going to say, there's some that seem to be pretty important, and then you go to try to find information, there's nothing. There's no picture. There's a name. That's about it.
Yeah, at that point, then you have to even question, is this even correct?
Yeah, exactly.
But in this episode, I think we'll be starting off with Bluebird, pretty much. And possibly Artichoke and other things going on with that. I'll get it. Okay. Oh, before we get going, do you want to plug your stuff and let people know where they can find you at, my man?
Yes, it's Thrash Talk with Thrash on YouTube and Instagram. I'm probably going to be making a Twitter too, but
yeah, I really wish you would.
Yeah, I will for the show, but I ain't making no personal one.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
But yeah, I'll give NY the link on the bottom. You can just click on it. There might not be anything for a bit. Just been working on stuff, but I got some stuff planned. I got a co-host that's going to do some episodes with me too.
Nice,
so
nice.
Yeah.
Oh, can you? Is it a secret or? Who is?
No, you don't know him.
Oh,
They're
okay.
just a person I know from work that we always are talking about stuff, and I was
That's
like, you
cool
know
as
what,
shit.
you want to do
That's
a show
cool
with
as
me?
Shit, though. That's awesome. Good for you, man.
I can tell me and her are going to be debating on stuff because she seems kind of political a little bit.
That can make it interesting, though, especially having different dynamics. I mean, that's kind of like me and Teresa don't see eye to eye and everything, and we look at topics in different angles. I think we still make for interesting discussion. So.
No, that's what she said. The same thing. She's like, I think that's a good thing, and we can kind of.
Oh yeah.
We see it through two different angles.
Of course. All right, that's good, man. So good luck with that. I hope that actually works out for you. So yeah, your stuff will be in the bottom, and as well as the links to the Spiritual Gangsters and the Occult Rejects. And just another quick reminder before we get into it. This, again, I said this will be ending the RSS feed for the NY Patriot Show, or at least for new episodes. The old episodes will stay up, but the other ones, the newer ones going forward after this series is over, will start dropping on the Occult Rejects, just so I can keep it all in one spot. It makes it easier for me. So there you go. There's another reminder. And, we'll get into Bluebird. So I've got some notes, a decent amount of notes here to read off, and I'll try not to take up too much time. But for Bluebird, I have, in spring of 1950, several CIA branches were considering the operational use of hypnosis. Head of the operation became Sheffield Edwards, formerly an Army colonel. According to now declassified intelligence files published by the National Security Archive, Edwards later personally handled joint CIA mafia operations resulting in the assassination attempts of Fidel Castro. Edwards proposed to form interrogation teams under the command of the Office of Security, which would be deployed to handle agents and defectors. These teams should always comprise a psychiatrist, a polygraph lie detector, an expert hypnotist, and a technician. Edwards' plan was agreed upon in the condition that the teams would not be deployed without permission of a specially established committee. It was Edwards who named the project Bluebird, supposedly. But it is not known what the name refers to. Operation Bluebird was classified top secret and was treated with particular secrecy, since it not only established a behavioral control program within the CIA in close collaboration with the Office of Scientific Intelligence, but also made use of the Bluebird's research results through the interrogation teams operating across the agency. On April 20th, 1950, Roscoe, I'm probably going to screw this up, Helen Ketter, at the time director of the CIA, officially approved Bluebird to protect its most secretive activities. Unaccountable funds were authorized. So that's interesting. They had tons of funds coming in, I'm sure.
Go
ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I heard that the name Bluebird supposedly comes from.
There is tons of ideas about that too. So.
One of them was that they wanted the prisoners to sing like a bird.
Yes. And see, I could almost actually get that. Like that almost makes sense, to tell you the truth.
And now I kind of had my own little thought on it. Now I've had on a mushroom trip one time. I've seen like the bluebirds that are like in Snow White and all that. I've seen those literal birds during a trip before, and it kind of made me like, I wonder if there's something behind that. Probably not, but made me think of it.
You know, I've heard of, and then we'll get back to it. I'm sure you've probably heard this too. I have heard of like people having a lot of like reptilian like visions on hallucinogenics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, I do wonder if there's something behind that actually, but the program's official objectives were A, discovering means of conditioning personnel to prevent unauthorized extraction of information from them by known means. Investigating the possibility of control of an individual by application of special interrogation techniques. C, memory enhancement. And D, establishing defense means for preventing hostile control of agency personnel. Amongst the attendants of the original Bluebird meeting held in the office of Sheffield Edwards was the Assistant Chief of Scientific Intelligence, Marshall Chadwell. He assured that his office would continue its efforts gathering all possible data on foreign, particularly Russian, behavior science and mind control. Shortly after, Chadwell's representative was tasked with looking into the Nuremberg tribunal records to see if they contained anything useful in regards to Bluebird or information on interrogation methods that were used in Nazi Germany. I included that because I just wanted to show that, like, even prior, they were already kind of, like, interested. I mean, they're just saying it right there. They were interested in how the Nazis were doing it. You know, I find that interesting. Overseas experiments in Japan. 3 months after the project was approved, a team of 3 interrogators traveled to Japan to test behavioral techniques on humans, likely to be suspected double agents. They arrived in Japan in July 1950, approximately 1 month after the Korean War was started. The team was ordered by the Office of Security to hide its true mission even from U.S. military authorities by saying that they were doing intensive polygraph work. According to John Marks, they tested a drug cocktail containing the depressant sodium amytal, if I'm saying that right, used as a truth serum together with the stimulant benzodrine on each of the 4 subjects, 2 of whom who received picks trotoxin as a second stimulant. It was also attempted to induce amnesia in the prisoners. The CIA documentation on the first tests were considered successful and give only a very general idea of what really happened at the test site in Japan. 3 months later, up from October 25th, a second series of experiments on 25 North Korean prisoners of war took place, where advanced techniques, in quotations, were used. And then we got a little bit of Germany. As a result of interrogations conducted, another goal was added, the evaluation of offensive uses of unconventional interrogation techniques, including hypnosis and drugs. And this is where we get into your place that you were talking about last time, and that I'm sure we'll be bringing it up again. Camp King. One of the most important long-term black sites overseas was Camp King in Germany. And here the CIA began developing extreme interrogation techniques and behavioral modification programs. The unorthodox methods the CIA and its partner agencies explored, including hypnosis, electric shock, chemicals, and illegal street drugs. Camp King was chosen as an ideal place to do this work, in part because it was off-site, but mainly because of its access to prisoners believed to be Soviet spies. Supposedly. In the end of 1950, the former OSI officer Morse Allen became head of the Bluebird program. In his early career, Allen had worked within the framework of several anti-communist operations, starting in the 1930s with joining the Civil Service Commission, where he had assembled files on communists. During World War II, Allen had worked for naval intelligence, tracking down leftists in New York. God, always New York, right? Always got to come back to New York somehow. Later, he was amongst those Marines who landed on the island of Okinawa. After the war, he joined the State Department, where he remained only shortly until the end of 1940s because he did not agree with the way the State Department was treating certain communist cases, after he started working for the CIA's Office of Security. In late 1952, Morse Allen, a CIA secret security office official, was summoned to the office of his superior, Security Deputy Chief Robert L. Bannerman, where he met with another agency official to discuss what Bannerman initially introduced as the Kelly case. The Kelly case as followed. Kelly, whose real name is Dimitrov, supposedly, is a 29-year-old Bulgarian and was the head of a small political party based in Greece and working for Bulgarian independence. The official continued to explaining to Allen that months after CIA field operatives discovered that Dimitrov was seriously considering becoming a double agent for the French intelligence service, accordingly states that the memo, a plot was rigged with Dimitrov, and he was told he was going to be assassinated, and as a protective, he was placed in custody of the Greek police. So, successfully duped, Dimitrov was then thrown into prison. There he was subjected to interrogation and torture, and witnessed the brutal torture of other persons the CIA had induced, with stuff in prison. Greek intelligence and law enforcement agencies were especially barbaric in their methods. According to Allen's memo, after holding Dimitrov for 6 months, the Greek authorities decided he was no more than a nuisance, and they told the CIA to take him back, because the agency was unable to dispose of Dimitrov in Greece, the memo states. The CIA flew him to a secret interrogation center at Fort Clayton in Panama. In the 1950s, Fort Clayton, along with nearby sister installations, Forts Amador and Gulick, the initial homes of the Army's notorious Schools of the Americas, served as a secret prison and interrogation centers for double agents and others kidnapped and spirited out of Europe and other locations. Beginning in 1951, Fort Amador and reportedly Fort Gulick were extensively used by the Army and the CIA as a secret experimental site for developing behavior modification techniques and a wide range of drugs, including truth drugs, mescaline, LSD, and heroin. Former CIA officials have also long claimed that Forts Clayton and Amador in the 1950s hosted a number of secret Army assassination teams that operated throughout North and South America, Europe, and Southeast Asia. There, in Panama, Dimitrov was again aggressively interrogated and then confined as a psychopathic patient to a high-security hospital ward at Fort Clayton. Allen's memo makes a point stating Dimitrov is not a psychopathic personality. After months of confinement in Panama, Dimitrov had become a serious problem for the agency and the military officials holding him in the hospital. Dimitrov had become increasingly angry and bitter about his treatment, and he was insisting that he be released immediately. The official explained to Allen that the CIA could release Dimitrov to the custody of a friend of his in Venezuela, but was prone not to because Dimitrov was now judged to have become extremely hostile towards the CIA. Hence, they considered an artichoke approach on him to see if it would be possible to reorient Dimitrov favorably towards the CIA. So now they basically wanted to see if I guess they can actually make this guy really think what they want him to think. Allen wrote in his subsequent summary memorandum, this artichoke operation which will necessarily involve the use of drugs, is being considered by OPC with a possibility that Dr. Eck and Mike Gladdick will carry out the operation, presumably at the military hospital in Panama. Real quick, if you don't know who any of those people are, Mike Gladdick, I found him a little bit interesting. He was a Polish fighter, a pilot, a flying ace of World War II. He was born in Warsaw, and he graduated summa cum laude from the Polish Air Force Academy. He was born May 17th, 1918 in Poland, and he died in Seattle, Washington, July 12th, 2011 at the age of 93. He had 1939 to 1946 is his years of service, supposedly. He was also also involved in this would be a Bulgarian interpreter, agents to this agency since neither Eck nor Gladdick speak Bulgarian. Allen noted in his memo that Security Chief Bannerman pointed out that this type of operation could only be carried out with his or his superiors' authorization, and that under no circumstances whatsoever could anyone but a authorized MD administer drugs to any subject of this agency of any type. And Dr. Eck mentioned above was Dr. Robert S. Eck of course, Brooklyn, New York. And again, it always comes back to Brooklyn. Comes back to New York. And one thing I thought was interesting about this guy, now it's not him, but his father, I did find out. His father was Major Albert Daniel Eck, and he was born January 16th. And he was at 1877 East New York, Kings County, and New York. He died on April 28th of 1944. I looked up his obituary, and his obituary, it states, he also served at the Mexican border in 1916, and he was a member of Merchants Lodge 709 F and AM. So his father was a Mason. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. His brother was Albert Decker, who was an actor. He began his career in the theater in the 1920s, performed on Broadway, and made his first film appearance in The Great Garrick in 1937. And he did a bunch of other movies, and his sister was Catherine G. Eck, and she was even in the U.S. Air Force. And in the Morning Register, there is even a pic of her brother coming there to come visit her at Fort Des Moines, and it was like a big deal, like, oh, we got this famous person coming here. So I just wonder, even with this whole family, it seems very suspect. I don't know, that's weird. Like, the one father, was the Mason. He's in the government. This person now, his son is involved with MKUltra. One of his sons an actor. The other one's in another part of the government. It's like, Jesus, come on. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember looking up that Merchant's Lodge, and there's like all kinds of like medallions and stuff you can buy. And then I remember I'm not 100% sure he was actual a member of the Merchant's Lodge. I think he was just a guest for one of the dinners, but they had Admiral Byrd, who went to the North Pole and Antarctica, supposedly. But he's associated with that lodge in some way or another.
Oh, I remember you telling me about that. And you were even sending me pictures of stuff too.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But can I add to something you were saying earlier?
Yeah, go for it, my man. Go for it.
Yeah, so that whole interrogation that happened in Tokyo, that was Sidney Gottlieb. And they went to Tokyo. And they were supposedly Russian spies, these Japanese guys. And the chemicals used were made by Frank Olson, who we'll get into later.
Oh, wow.
And they actually took those guys out on a boat and shot them all in the head and dumped them in the ocean.
God damn.
Yeah, and then after they went there, they went to South Korea, the 25 guys there. They did the same thing. They killed all of them. I mean, that's so like that guy that was in Panama. I guess he's lucky that they only interrogated him for months and didn't just throw him out there like Osama bin Laden.
Oh, man. I have like maybe 2 more pages worth, and then I'll shut up and then I'll let you go. So I'll just finish it up here with a little bit of Mike Gladdick and then 2 paragraphs on Fort Clayton. Again, Mike Gladdick, who I was just talking about with his family, that just seems like really interesting there. Oh no, that was Eck. But Mike Gladdick, the fighter pilot guy, according to former CIA officials, was a decorated wartime pilot who, after the war, became deeply involved in black market trafficking in Europe and the U.S. And then in the early 1950s was recruited to join a newly composed artichoke team operating out of Washington, D.C. I find it funny how it's like, I mean, they probably knew he was like a criminal in that sense.
You know what I just thought of? Black market trafficking. He's in the CIA knows all this. CIA knows all this stuff. Was he bringing Nazis to South America and stuff in his plane?
Oh,
what a better
it
cover
doesn't.
than
Yeah,
that.
I was gonna say it also doesn't have to necessarily be drugs.
No,
because like my first thought goes there, and that's actually not correct.
That would be trafficking if you were trafficking supposed criminals, war criminals, to escape. I mean, Poland is right there. He knows the areas. He knows how to fly. He knows all of Europe and all the campaign areas and all that.
Damn, that's some good thoughts right there. Huh. Imagine that, dude. Damn, we're covering a guy who was smuggling Nazis over here, and we don't even realize it. Oh wow. All right, real quick, Allen also wrote that Bannerman was concerned that the military hospital for Clayton may not approve of or permit an artichoke operation to be conducted on the ward within which Dimitrov was being held. Thus, it caused the movement of Dimitrov to another location in Panama. And then he ended up in Panama. Lastly, Bannerman stated to the official and Allen that the CIA's Office of Security, through its Artichoke Committee, would have to be cognizant of the operation and may even want to run the operation themselves, since this type of work is one which security handles for the agency. And then in Fort Clayton, let Let me skip ahead. Morse Allen concluded in his memo why the artichoke technique that Eck and Gladdick are considering for use in this case is not known to the writer, which is Allen. The writer believes the approach will be made through the standard hypnosis technique, reconditioning and reorientating an individual in such a manner, in the opinion of the writer, cannot be accomplished easily and will require a great deal of time. It is also believed that with our present knowledge, we would have no absolute guarantee that the subject in the case would maintain a positive, friendly attitude towards us, even though there is apparently a successful response to that treatment. The writer did not suggest to Bannerman and the CIA officials that perhaps a total amnesia could be created by a series of electroshocks, but merely indicated that amnesia under drug treatments was not certain. About a month later, according to the former CIA officials, after artichoke committee approval to subject Dimitrov to artichoke techniques, a high-ranking CIA official objected to treating Dimitrov in such a manner. That objection delayed application of the techniques for about 3 weeks. And then in March of 1952, according to the same former officials, Dimitrov was successfully given the artichoke treatment in Panama for a period of about 5 weeks. In late 1956, the CIA brought Dimitrov at his request to the United States. Apparently, the agency felt comfortable enough with his diminished hostility and anger to agree to bring him to America from Athens, where he had returned for undetermined reasons. The CIA files state the agency made no further operation use of Dimitrov after he came to the United States. However, former CIA officials dispute this and relate that Dimitrov was used on occasion for sensitive jobs. And I guess that's what I thought my quick introduction covers. My bad. I really didn't think it'd go that long. But there you go. I thought that was like a good basic kind of thing for Bluebird. And then I know like you have doctors and people, and I have doctors and people we could talk about. So wherever you want to go from there, my man, it's on. It's up to you.
I kind of wanted to go off on a slight tangent that ties into this stuff.
Go for it.
With what you were talking about with Panama and everything. Well, an interesting thing, I'm going to be doing a video on this too, on Alan Dulles. Alan Dulles, him and his brother, his law firm, it was Sullivan and Cromwell. I kind of talked about it last time. I misspoke and said they were like a bank, but they're not a bank. They're a lawyer office or whatever, criminal. Well, they owned a company called United Fruit Company. And what they did, that company it's been going since like the late 1800s and stuff. But eventually him and his brother, John Foster Dulles and Alan Dulles, they basically took over the Middle America and some of South America, certain countries, mainly Guatemala, and they're called the Banana Wars and stuff. And they literally basically took over. Let's just say we'll use Guatemala. They owned all the railroads. They owned the telephone company, the telegraph company. They basically owned all the land that everybody worked on, and they not only took out one of the leaders of Guatemala and put in their own guy. There's all kinds of stuff I could go on it. But my point is, Alan Dulles, the director of the CIA, who knows all about the MKUltra program and knows everything about it, they were basically taking control of Middle America back in like 1914, and about 1935, they had control of Guatemala and several other countries. So it's interesting. Panama, we have CIA bases right there. And we actually used our own Marines in these banana wars. I just thought that was interesting because
there was a lot. I mean, I know
that fruit company is directly tied to Alan Dulles, directly tied to the CIA. Noriega, he was doing business with the CIA years later. On and on and on and on. They're down there. While simultaneously all these Nazis are going there, and they've been located in this area for already when they first started moving there back in the 30s, when Germany was, partners with a lot of those countries down there.
Yeah, it wasn't unusual for them to be over there.
No, there's whole towns that look just like German towns.
Oh, yeah.
They speak German.
That in Argentina, and for sure. Yeah, they had schools with swastikas on them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was people there that speak German because that's what was over there.
And, I'll be getting into it when I do an Alan Dulles video, but he was working and talking with Nazis and best buddies with Nazis, and that law firm actually helped IG Farb and Chemical Company. They were one of the clients. I mean, the connections, they never stop, it seems like.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, see, this topic is usually it's probably going to be like 5 parts, and we probably could have turned it into 10. You know what I'm saying? And still never have finished.
Yeah, there's so much. It's kind of mind-blowing.
And, even with the notes that I have had, I've even gone through there and clipped some stuff out. And that still went longer than I thought that would. Besides the other stuff that I have, So it's
I've done the same thing. I've, took people out and not even going to talk about certain people. And so just because there's so much with certain people, and it's there's a lot.
So was there someone you wanted to go on to next, or you said you were going to get to, because I know we kind of got off track now, I think, but you said you were going to tie something in, I think. Oh, was that it?
So the artichoke basically got took over by Sidney Gottlieb, and I have some notes here on my phone. 1 second. Okay, so the artichoke team, they had about 4 teams, probably more later on. But the 4 teams were basically created in 1952. There was basically a lot of this information I got from that Poisoner in Chief book.
Oh, okay.
So what it says here, it says that the teams were typically highly unqualified. They had no experience in psychology, no foreign language. They didn't know a foreign language. And they were basically just coming up with just stuff out of their imagination to try and see if it works. There was literally no real science or basis behind any of it. Although the guys at Camp King, the team there was called the Rough Boys. And they were notorious for being just very, very violent and mean, and they did not give a shit what they were doing. But these artichoke teams considered themselves more sophisticated and better than these guys. But they had teams in West Germany, France, Japan, and South Korea is what the book says were the 4 teams. Now, I would assume there's more than 4 teams, because this kind of blew my mind. The teams only consisted of three guys. It said a research specialist, a medical officer, and a security technician. So whatever security technician means, whatever medical officer and research specialist.
I wonder if security technician includes the polygraph person.
Well, and how as a research specialist, if it specifically specified they were highly unqualified?
Yeah, well, I was even gonna say, not that I know who wrote that, and I've watched his stuff before, and I thought it was actually very informative. I did like his stuff, but I mean, could he be wrong about that? I mean, I could see how maybe there was probably people involved that like really weren't qualified, but I do find it hard to believe that these people didn't know what they were doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm going to say it now. I got a lot of information from the guy, but his book is very confusing. It's all over the place. And there's so much information that's all over the place. I've had to go through the book probably 20 times because he'll go from like Bluebird to down here in MKUltra, and then he's back to Artichoke, and then he's back over here in MKUltra, and then you're kind of like, wait, what's going on? What is this? And it seems like to me, with me finding information and stuff, that he left a lot of stuff out that he had to have come across. If I came across it,
that. Yeah, I remember you telling me that. You're like, if I came across this, how did this guy not?
Yeah, and then
I mean, even think about this, and I know you said you've experienced it before, and I know I have. How many times that if I had a some sort of like membership, or I was part of a university or some shit, I would be able to look at these things. You know what I'm saying? So he even had more access to shit than we do. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, he definitely had more access because he talked about going to different universities and checking their files on certain things. Yeah, like Harvard has like special documents on the Henry Beecher, the doctor that worked at Camp King, but they're only at the Harvard. Like,
that's interesting, isn't it?
Weird.
I find
and
that
back to
itself.
what you were saying, like, were they really this unqualified? Well, is he maybe possibly making it like, these guys were so unqualified that they didn't really know what they're doing, so I wouldn't lean too much on what they did, maybe. Like, he's kind of like...
Well, sometimes I feel like, and I guess that's kind of why I stress it, and I'm not saying that this guy is doing that. I mean, not trying to knock the dude. I can't remember his name. But
Stephen Kinzer.
Sometimes I do feel like a lot of times when you see some people cover this topic, not really conspiracy theorists, but more of like an informational aspect, they chalk it up as like some like almost like rowdy good old boys with a ton of acid just doing silly shit. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
No. It wasn't like that.
100%.
I don't think so.
No, I agree. No, the guy has really good books on a lot of other stuff, like Alan Dulles and all kinds of stuff. The guy's great, got a lot of great information for sure. But yeah,
I know. I thought for Sidney, for Gottlieb, if nobody really knows who he is, I think listening to his lecture that was like an hour, maybe an hour and a half long. I think that's really good for like to get an introductory idea of what this guy was about. But that's just scratch the surface shit, in my opinion.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, me finding this other author, H.P. Albarelli, he did A Terrible Mistake book on Frank Olson's death, and then he did some other books too that are pretty good. Now that guy is very detailed in a lot of good information, and he starts getting into stuff that I was having a hard time finding, but there is information once you find, like when he gives you names and stuff, you're then able to find stuff. It really good. The guy died, and he was doing a book on that George Hunter White agent, who we'll get into. Really good book. So I would say if you want to read books on it, I would get Stephen Kinzer's book. But then I would also get the H.P. Albarelli, because there's a lot of stuff that Kinzer's missing that guy has. Like, he goes deep into like the Frank Olson murder, like we're getting into. He knows all about the hotel and who worked there, and
oh wow,
one of the assassins that's involved in it is French guy. He worked there. crazy. He breaks down on how this hotel, they even had like their own, it was like a CIA, the place, like they had their get-togethers there.
Oh yeah, that's what it seemed like from what I got out of it. Yeah, it seemed like that was like almost like a spot for them to go to. Like I don't think that was like the first time. They probably used that a few times, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that's it. That was a little off tangent there.
No, it's all right. We got done promoting those two people. Now we can move along.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of wanted to get into Sidney Gottlieb a little bit because he's going to be the key to this story. He's the guy that ran the program, MKUltra, Artichoke, all that. And I would like to kind of talk about him a bit because is in play with this whole story. So then once we know about him, we can then kind of get into what they started doing in Artichoke and MKUltra.
Sounds good.
So, so Sidney Gottlieb, he was like a Jewish guy from. He wasn't a practicing Jew, but he was of Jewish descent or whatever. He had a club foot. He always had problems with his foot. Yeah, this is him right there in college.
And he was part of the Glee Club, you said too, right?
He was part of the Glee Club. He was the president of the debate club. Several things in college. Yeah, and then there's a kind of a funny quote.
Is this like the picture of him that you were telling me that like you haven't been able to find like anybody else? Like,
no, I've never have found anybody or anything.
Because there's very actually limited. There's limited pictures of this guy, and that guy Kinzer, I think was that his name. Even mentions that I think he went to the CIA and got like approval to use the picture, right, or some shit.
Yeah, he got a younger picture of him when he worked at the CIA during the program. He was going to put it on the cover, and then they said no. So I guess he has the picture like in the book somewhere, like in the picture area. But yeah, a young picture of him here is very hard to find, for sure. Because there's the only pictures you'll find are when he's got gray hair and stuff in the 70s. Like during the hearings and stuff. But yeah, he had like a club foot. He always had he walked weird. He had a lisp and stuff and stuttered. Not a lisp, he stuttered, I believe it was. And he actually had to train himself to not stutter and everything. And Alan Dulles, who was the director of the CIA, when they meet later, they both actually had club foots.
I was gonna say, wasn't there another person involved with a club foot? I was thinking it might have been a relative, but I knew there was another club foot person in there. That is really weird.
It was Sidney Gottlieb and Alan Dulles. Completely different backgrounds, completely different everything. And see, Sidney was
Did Alan Dulles like stutter or something? Did he have like a speech problem as well?
No, he didn't. Didn't. And it seemed later in life like Sidney didn't even have that. Like he was able to train and get that stuff out of there. The limited amount I've heard his voice. But yeah, apparently he like loved to sing, and the book talks about that he was big into like folk dancing, and he liked learning different dances from different
I remember reading
places around the world and different folk dances, and
even though he had a busted foot, they said that he actually was like that he was good at that stuff though, right?
Yeah, like he trained to where that didn't really affect him. He danced and did all kinds of stuff. He wanted to join, go to war during World War II, but they wouldn't let him because of his foot, and he was super mad. So then that's when he started working as a chemist in chemicals and stuff. He wasn't quite CIA or anything yet, but he was working in chemicals and stuff. I can't remember the university.
Like, I could kill more people with this shit, actually.
That's
I'm not even going to go out to the battlefield now.
Well, like he, supposedly he was like I believe they said he was like a pacifist and stuff. Like he didn't believe in killing or anything like that. He lived real strange. You know, the typical CIA person was they're from a rich family and went to all the top schools. He was an Ivy League school, but he didn't have the same background as like Alan Dulles.
Was he the one that kind of like after the fact just like disappeared and like almost went into like hippie life?
Oh yeah, this is him.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I was like, that just seems very
even
familiar.
during the CIA career, him and his wife lived out in the like forest, basically, in like a cabin. It didn't have running water, didn't have bathrooms. It had outhouses. He's like, he like milked the goats super early in the morning, and he specifically made yogurt and stuff from the goat's milk, and yeah, very weird. Very weird. A lot like some CIA people mentioned later, he was like kind of like the counterculture before the counterculture even began. Like,
well, you know, that's very much
kind of hippie shit.
That's also, but you know what? That also sounds very fitting to the whole, I guess, I don't want to say a cult, but like the pagan. I even hate using that word. The whole like witchy woo-woo stuff with the Nazis and their thinking with, you know, it's kind of like very much living off the land.
Yeah. 100%.
He's very fitting kind of for that type of ideal person.
No, that's 100% it. Yeah, the like the blood and soil kind of thing.
Yeah. I just didn't know like the right phrase to use.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, that it would kind of fit in with that. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, he was like, yeah, kind of like a hippie, like homesteader kind of guy. While he worked at the CIA and was like traveling all around and doing stuff. And yeah, is there like maybe show like a picture of him when he's older, where most people will know what he looks like? Oh, wait, go back. Read his quote. It's like a Yankee who pleases the Southerners. Glee Club, Dean's List, Agricola Staff, Agra Club.
Yeah. New York.
So is that agriculture?
And again, New York, of course.
New York. He's from New York. He was born there. 1938. And that yearbook is the yearbook he went to college to. So it is him.
That's funny.
That's Henry Beecher. We'll get to him later. There we go. There's Sidney. There he is. That's typically what you'll find if you look up Sidney Gottlieb, is a picture like that. Gray hair, and sometimes he has glasses on.
Yeah, I know I've seen the one with the glasses. All right, so back to him. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, so, all right, so Sidney Gottlieb's first day at the CIA was July 13th, 1951. It was Friday the 13th.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was interesting as well when I heard that.
Damn.
Yeah, and he was basically part of like the technical services staff. So basically what they did, they basically came up with gadgets and all kinds of stuff, like James Bond kind of stuff. And Sidney Gottlieb was part of the chemical division. So there we go. There's the beginning of him working with chemicals and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think when I was looking into him, and it may have even been from one of that prior guy that we were talking about with the book and the whatever the discussion on YouTube. I think he even mentioned that he was like in some sort of, where it was almost like 007, like Mission Impossible, like little gadget type things that with him.
Oh yeah, no, he like came up with like syringes that you could like put through wine cork, but it was thin enough where you couldn't tell anything had even happened, and you could just put anything into a wine. All kinds of crazy things. literal James Bond stuff, like
Yeah.
like
That's what it
little
sounded like.
pins and like that, like spray aerosol, and like you can like spray people. And remember there's that one court hearing where there's like that I think in the 70s, where it shows like how they had like that heart attack gun they could shoot you with it. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, they did stuff
that kind
like
of
that.
stuff.
Yeah, it was very like weird.
Yeah, there's a case actually. I don't remember if it's later in the MKUltra program or what, but Sidney Gottlieb, he like developed some sort of poison. He was like showing somebody the poison, and they like rolled up to a tree, and it was like a blow dart, and the blow dart right into the tree with whatever it was. And they came back later, and that tree, 2 days later, and the tree was completely dead, no leaves, nothing on it, like dead.
That's wild. That's fast.
Yeah, like he would like experiment with like taking the gallbladders out of like African crocodiles and like trying to come up with bacteria or something from it, and all kinds of stuff, botulism and all sorts of crazy stuff.
That's right. Yes, he was big on. Wasn't he kind of big on getting poisons that way from actual like animals or like live things?
Yeah. He like all kinds of stuff. I can't even think of. There was like certain fish and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they would actually like come up with all sorts of different other chemicals and drugs, and with just like numbers as names. Like there's like I can't think of it, but it would be like 394 2C or something. And then they would just give it to somebody to try. When we'll get into that later in probably episode 4 or 5.
Okay.
Because that's at that Edgewood Arsenal. Yeah, it's important even back in World War II.
Yeah. Oh, so anything else with Gottlieb that you wanted to talk about?
Well, that's basically a good background for him. But so Gottlieb, he's going to come up throughout the this whole thing here. So when you hear Sidney or Gottlieb, that's who we're talking about. And to tie it back into your story earlier, this is the guy that went to Tokyo, and he traveled around and watched these interrogations and experiments and how they were done and the results of everything. And he watched all this stuff and participated in a lot of it as well, obviously.
Yeah. No, he is a very, very important person. He had his hands on a lot of different stuff.
That Steven Kinzer guy claims he talked to some CIA guy, and because the guy asked him who's the story about, and he says Sidney Gottlieb. Oh, I've never even heard of him. Come on.
Yeah.
He's probably his picture's up somewhere in there and everything.
Yeah, stop faking the funk. If you want, then I will. I have like 2 doctors that I have like very little on. It's just I've never really heard of them before. I'll literally a total of 4 pages. So I'll cover them if you want, and then maybe we can go into something else or someone else on your end.
Yep.
All right. So I do have somebody that I came across, Dr. Friedrich or Fritz Hoffmann. Fritz Hoffmann was a German scientist who conducted experiments on concentration camp prisoners during the 1930s and 40s. In 1945, he testified during the trials at Dachau, or if I'm saying that right, probably saying it wrong, concentration camp in Germany regarding the murder of 324 Czechoslovakian Catholic priests who were exposed to malaria during experiments. After the war, he was recruited by the British as a part of Operation Matchbox. In 1947, he joined the U.S. Army on research programs involving nerve gas, such as sarin, psychoactive agents, such as lysergic acid, and or LSD, and other things. He was also the fourth scientist to come over from Operation Paperclip. And it's like, I don't know if I've ever actually really heard of him until I started looking into it now. So this was like a surprise to me. It was like, oh, the fourth guy. In the mid-1950s, he joined the Central Intelligence Agency and continued to work with psychoactive agents, particularly LSD. Around this time, working at Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland, United States, his test subjects, all U.S. Army enlisted men and federal prison inmates, were experimented upon without being told, and they were given doses of various toxins. He also experimented with LSD on thousands of monkeys imported from South Africa for the very purpose. He ordered a large supply of LSD from Sandoz Company in, I'm going to screw this up, Bacilli, maybe Switzerland, on several occasions. He also met with the officials and Harvard's Dr. Henry Beecher, a covert CIA academic. Hoffman ordered hundreds of monkeys shipped to Fort Detrick's Special Operations Division, where they were fed a steady diet of psychotropic drugs to study various stages of induced psychotic behavior. These experiments quickly evolved into human experiments conducted on U.S. service personnel at Fort Detrick and federal prisons. A former researcher is quoted saying, "I don't know which was more frightening, one of the monkeys pumped up on a cocktail of psychedelics or one of the drugged out of control inmates at Atlanta's federal penitentiary." In the late 1950s, he worked on the development of chemical weapons, codenamed Agent White, Agent Blue, and Agent Orange. The latter, a herbicide used to defoliate vegetation, would negatively affect the health of military and civilian populations alike on both sides of the Vietnam conflict. He also worked on chemicals used in the attempted assassination on Cuban leader Fidel Castro. He also synthesized poison gases and toxins for the Luftwaffe's Technical Research Institute in Berlin. Hoffman's experience researching truth serums and nerve gas for the Nazis' SS made him a sought-after paperclip recruit. So that was kind of one of the reasons why they brought him over here. And just real quick, he was married to Olga Valeska Hoffman, and she is survived by one son, Franz Joachim, which I found that name interesting, and one daughter, Gabriella Hoffman. I really couldn't find anything on those people. There was one thing I came across where there is American public television stations elect Franz Joachim as professional vice chair of the APTS Board of Trustees. I don't know if that's the same person, but that was the only thing I could find. But that was the rest of him. But I was hoping maybe to find some stuff with his family, but nothing really.
Well, interesting. Hoffman, and then Albert Hoffman, the inventor of LSD, and then this guy's freaking implementing the LSD on prisoners and stuff.
Yeah. That was like almost very, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess at one point it's like, from covering other things, it's like you look at what happened in Germany, or if you look at like what 731 did. But then it's like, if you look at what we did, it's like, were we any different? But I was going to say, like, maybe it just seemed very 731-ish to me, but it's just like, is that not really? It's just like, well, at this point, everybody's been like that way anyway, in my opinion. So, that
100%, we did the exact same things.
Yeah, that's, I guess, like, I mean, what I guess was probably, I mean, I don't know why I seem so surprised, but I guess when you start, like, I guess, spending the time to look into this stuff, it was kind of surprising to me. Like, it's like, damn, like you actually do find enough like kind of out there that even shows you how screwed up this stuff is. And just think about like what you're not finding out, you know.
Yeah.
I have another guy over here, and it's even less. And then I'll let you go if you want. Dr. Hubertus Strughold. He's from 1898 to 1986. Motherfucker lived long. He was a prominent German medical researcher who served as the chief aeromedical researcher of the Luftwaffe from 1935 until the end of World War II. During the war, he conducted some horrific human experiments on prisoners that got many of his test subjects killed. Those activities were swept under the rug, however, and he was brought over to the U.S. under the aegis of Operation Paperclip. After earning a medical degree in the 1920s, he got into an emerging field of aviation medicine. He won a Rockefeller Foundation fellowship and traveled to the U.S. in 1928, where he conducted aviation medicine research at the University of Chicago and Case Western University. Upon his return to Germany, he became a university professor. In 1935, he was hired by the Nazis as director of Research Institution for Aviation Medicine, a think tank sponsored by Hermann Göring's Ministry of Aviation. Strughold's institution conducted pioneering research on the physical effects of supersonic flight and high altitude. When war broke out in 1939, the institution was absorbed into the Luftwaffe, and Strughold was commissioned as an officer, eventually becoming a colonel. During the war, he was a part of medical studies that used inmates from the concentration camp as guinea pigs for human experiments. Test subjects were subjected to surgeries without anesthetics, immersed in frozen water to examine the effects of hypothermia, and placed in air pressure chambers. After the war, investigators at the Nuremberg war trials listed him as one of 13 persons, firms, or individuals implicated in the Dachau medical atrocities. The U.S. government figured he possessed valuable information and experience. However, so he was never charged with war crimes. Instead, he was brought to America, where Strughold held high-ranking medical positions at the Air Force as head of its School of Aviation Medicine in Texas. He then went to work for NASA as head of the Department of Space Medicine. He conducted pioneering work in the physical and psychological effects of manned spaceflight, and his efforts helped get American astronauts to successfully walk on the moon. Because of his contributions to the field, he became known as the father of space medicine. Really? Very interesting.
Yeah, and never heard of him.
Right?
They kept that one secret.
Yeah, yo, that's
Wow.
yeah. That's what I was like when I came across him. I was like, there wasn't much, you couldn't find much, but I was like, I think that's still interesting.
Yeah, I found with him that he helped create the pressurized spacesuits and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, and he would test things on in chambers where supposedly zero gravity chambers and all kinds of different stuff. And
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
about that.
yeah, but I never heard of the guy before.
Yeah, until I
And
mentioned it
and he's
here, I think, right?
supposed to be this important.
Right? Yeah, that's what I was like.
Yeah, weird. So the Nuremberg trials, it's to me that is so strange.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last episode. How it's like they were bringing people kind of to, I guess, charging people with laws that didn't even exist technically, right?
it's like an international law, but only certain, but like the United States doesn't, they never even accepted the Nuremberg laws into their law. And I'm sure there's other countries as well, but it's just weird. It's in this one documentary, this one guy said it's almost like it's the most elaborate stage setup ever, that trial.
That's what I hate to say it, not to sound too conspiratorial, but like I do question if that was just all smoke and mirrors.
I mean, I feel like there was a few they kind of had to do it with.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, but like they had this all planned out. It was going to be televised. I'm sure it went the way that it was supposed to go.
Yeah.
Again, like what I was saying about if Nazis are involved, you have to worry about what they're showing you on TV. I say that shit all the time. That's why I even point to Azov. Again, we have Nazis sending over footage that the news are showing us of what's going on over in Ukraine. So you have to, again, even just because they're sitting on the defense side doesn't mean they're still not part of the script in the show.
100%.
I mean, this is this is like wrestling at this point, probably.
Dude, it is wrestling.
Yeah, for real. The judge is Ed McMahon.
Oh, hell no.
Oh, God. All right, sorry.
Oh, you're good. No, but it's like, it's like they took some people and they tried them, but then they kind of use those guys as, like, you're in a way, like kind of what you said, a smoke screen in a way, while they bring these 10,000 other ones behind the back door. Yeah, because they would just edit their records. They would just expunge all the stuff that they might have done, and then they would change other stuff, and they would put in other stuff like avid family man and all kinds of stuff, like, in their records. And like at Edgewood Arsenal, the head doctor there, in the documentary, you can watch it even on YouTube. There's the clip of it of him. They ask him like about Nazis working there, and he's like, "Oh, they weren't real Nazis though." Like, but they were, man.
Yeah, but they were. That's the problem, right? Oh man.
Yeah, and the guy says it like so matter of fact. And then in that same documentary, literally the guys that got experimented on, they like give their testimony in that documentary, and it's kind of cheesy, some of the cut scenes in between, but like hearing those guys' stories and seeing the old footage and everything, it makes it worth it. But oh my gosh, man. Those guys went through so much, and some of them, we'll get into it later. I'm getting off on a tangent on something we'll talk about later.
All right.
But anyways, that Nazi doctor was there, and there were several other Nazi doctors there, and like some of them you can't find anything on.
No, very little. It's like some people you won't, like you said before, you won't even find pictures of them. It's like a paragraph with like a mention, or that's it.
Yeah, they're just nothing.
Do you did you come across Estabrooks at George Estabrooks?
Yeah, the hypnotism guy.
Yeah, I found that. I thought that was interesting with that guy because of the hypnotism, and I think like he did shit with cards and stuff. I think.
Yeah, he was pretty.
And Harvard, and he did it with Harvard students.
Yeah, I have stuff here, right here.
Yeah, I thought he was an interesting guy too.
Yeah, he wrote like books on hypnotism and how to hypnotize people, and he like said that he could. I
think he told J. Edgar Hoover that he could do it.
Yeah, it was exactly. He told Hoover. He did like experiments on kids and all kinds of crazy stuff. There's like all kinds of stuff with this guy. Yeah, he would like hypnotize like kids in juvie and stuff. And
oh, you know what? You know what? Here, let me. I forgot. I have this part right here. I'll just read like this first 2 paragraphs that I have on them, and then you can go ahead.
Yeah.
I have George Hoban Estabrooks, December 16th, 1895 to December 30th, 1973, was a Canadian-American psychologist and an authority of hypnosis during World War II. He was a Harvard University graduate, a Rhodes Scholar, and chairman of the Department of Psychology at Colgate University. He claimed to have used hypnosis to help spies have split personalities, to not actually know they were spies in case of capture. He stated it was easy to create and easy to cure using hypnosis. He first joined the 1st Canadian Division in his teens at the age of 19 and became the youngest commissioned officer. Later in life, he became a 32nd degree Knight Templar Mason and wrote various articles in books, including these 4 publications: The Future of Human Mind, Hypnotism, Spiritism, and Man, and The Mechanical Misfit. So I found that was interesting that he was a Knights Templar Mason.
Yeah, no, I have that too.
Oh, shit, I'm sorry.
No, that's great.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about him?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it, because I don't want to steal all your thunder now.
Oh no. Yeah, like
I forgot about that until I just saw the notes that I had. I was like, oh wow, I forgot about that. Because I was like even thinking, I was like, I feel like there was like another Freemasonic topic or person.
What I wanted to actually say and kind of add it to what you were talking about, people might think that, oh, that's bullshit. He can't do that. Because when you look it up, you'll find people, he was a kook kind of. You can't actually mind control somebody to go, kill somebody in a hit in like the special forces or something.
Well, you know what? To tell you the truth, this sounds just like almost as silly as like what those like gadgets with Gottlieb. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
And the thing is, it's like, I'm not trying to say like this stuff is definitely correct with that, but I guess like I view these things silly because of how I've seen them portrayed in movies.
Oh,
that's
100%.
why I take it as kind of silly and not real, because they're in over-the-top movies that I've seen as a child. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's not real. It's just that's how I viewed it from the TV when it showed it to me.
Or the comedy show where the hypnotism guy brings the people up. Yeah.
Not trying to get like deep on it that way, but I mean, that's how I looked at it. Because I was like, all this shit kind of sounds like that silly shit that you'd see in movies, but like that doesn't mean it's not real.
Well, there's a reason why they use this guy, for a reason. And not only that, there's another guy we're going to talk about later that used the same techniques, and there's even kind of evidence that he was able to pull it off as well. The Jolly West guy, Jolly and West, that he was able to hypnotize people, and he could get people to think certain things. He could get people to see things. He could get people to all kinds of stuff, kill people and not remember it. There's a case of that. It's crazy, and it all falls in with this Estabrooks guy. Because he says he claims the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he did think that there was a lot of stuff that I'm pretty sure he did believe that you could actually make people like not exactly what I said before, not remember things that they did.
Yeah, he graduated from Harvard. He was a Rhodes Scholar, chairman of the Department of Psychology at Colgate University as well. So, like, they're not going to just have some crazy homeless dude that thinks he's hypnotizing people.
Okay, I have some other stuff I'll read, too, that I have on him. He did conduct an ESP experiment using cards in 1927, and Harvard students were used as the subjects. Estabrook acted as the sender with the guesser in an adjoining room. In total, 2,300 trials were conducted. When the subjects were sent to a distant room with insulation, the scores dropped to chance level. Attempts to repeat the experiment also failed. George Estabrook publicly acknowledged conducting extensive hypnosis work on behalf of the CIA, FBI, and military intelligence. In the 1940s, he boasted, "I can hypnotize a man without his knowledge or consent into committing treason against the United States." And he said that in 1943, Estabrook, and that was in a book called Operation Mind Control. He acknowledged building Manchurian candidates. In his book Spiritism, Dr. Estabrook describes experiments done to create multiple personalities. In his book Hypnotism, Dr. Estabrook states that the creation of experimental multiple personality for operational use in military subjects, whom he refers to as super spies, is ethical because of the demands of war. Estabrook stated, "We know that dual and even multiple personality can be both caused and cured by hypnosis. Moreover, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde combination is a very real one once it is established. The key to creating an effective spy or assassin rests in splitting a man's personality or creating a multiple personality with the aid of hypnotism. This is not science fiction. I have done it." That's quoted by him. A process which the doctor described as child's play. That same year, the year of President Kennedy's assassination, Estabrook suggested that Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby could very well have been performing through hypnosis. In a 1971 article in Science Digest, Dr. Estabrook claimed to have created hypnotic couriers and counterintelligence agents for operational use. This guy's like, he makes some bold claims, you know.
Yeah.
Could he be crazy, or could it be from actual experience? You know, I find it interesting that he's into occultism or spiritism, you know.
Well, I had an interesting thought on that. Like, so maybe, you know, because, like, you know, the spiritism thing, how a lot of it turned out to be kind of like charlatan stuff that they like, maybe he was actually hypnotizing people, and then they're actually starting to talk a different way while they're hypnotized, and getting the whole other group to think, wow, look, they're possessed by I don't know, whoever the hell, Geronimo or some shit.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. You don't have to get specific. It's all right. They're possessed by Baal.
There we go.
Yeah, make it sound better.
Yeah, but but really, he's just hypnotizing them.
Yeah,
and then he's selling books on it too.
Oh, you can like fake possessions.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm. Well, we'll have to think on that one. That sounds like a good one. That could be a good moneymaker. Wow, imagine some wild shit like that though. Someone doing that.
No, hypnotism, it's a real thing for sure. Like, you know, all kinds of athletes get hypnotized. Like Mike Tyson was hypnotized when he would fight. His coach would hypnotize him. All kinds of stuff. That custom auto guy, he knew how to like hypnotize. I
do believe hypnotism's real. I would say that like this stuff, like I said before, I do think of some serious claims, but like it would not surprise me if this is definitely possible. I think what's interesting with him is because like I even think like scientifically, maybe with like screwing around with certain stuff, you know, sounds, wavelengths, maybe just like forcing certain things onto people. You could kind of like maybe get that anyway. But this guy is also seems to be maybe like an occultist. And like I'm wondering if it's like he, like I said before, I think like sometimes MK Ultra can be like forced magic in a sense to somebody. So now does this guy like kind of understand or have experience with magic and then is trying to put it into scientific practice in some sense?
I mean, I kind of have some theories I kind of am thinking about, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just
nothing like.
It's just that if he's an occultist and he's involved with this, I mean, I find that's really interesting, and he could very well be knowing what he's doing.
No, he does. He does, because Jolly West just followed right in his footsteps. The same thing.
Mm. Oh, before when you mentioned the juvenile delinquents, he corresponded with FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover about using hypnosis to interrogate juvenile delinquents. His experimentation raises the possibility that he or other investigators might have attempted to create Manchurian candidates in children. It says such a possibility might seem far-fetched until one considers the LSD, biological, and radiation experiments conducted on children, and the fact that the 4 MKUltra sub-projects were on children. The deliberate creation of multiple personality in children is explicitly stated plan in the MKUltra sub-project proposals submitted for funding on March 30th, 1961. So,
yeah, I can't help to think Charles Manson and the girls, like a lot of the girls were young. Yeah, I don't know. And those books, George Brooks books were out. What 100%. They probably have it at the prison to read or something at some point.
that's very.
But yeah.
But was there anything else that you wanted to cover in this episode? Because like now I'm done, so the rest is kind of like up to you.
1 second.
Sure.
We got to cover Henry Beecher if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we should have flight records of him. I think I sent flight record.
All right, yeah. I'll check through.
Yeah, because I would like to talk about that because that kind of shows that he was at least actually there and flew back. There's a record of it. Because he flew back to New York from Frankfurt, which is where Camp King is. It's just north of there. Yeah, that's the census record. This is Sidney Gottlieb's census record. So the first page was him, and then I moved over. That's okay. So the back one more. See Sidney Gottlieb. He's the head of the house. He's 23. And then you click over, and then I moved over. That's that other one. It said it was actually he's 40. He's a chemist and research. And then those were his wife and kids' names.
Penny, Rachel, Peter, Sidney Gottlieb. Right here, yeah, showed in New York. March 6th, 1999. Oof.
Crazy.
Numbers.
1918.
Sidney Gottlieb, USA. Passenger aboard at Amsterdam.
Okay, I got the Sidney Gottlieb one. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of him like flying all over the place and back. All kinds of countries.
Sidney Gottlieb again.
Yeah, where was this from? Munich, Germany.
Sidney Gottlieb.
That's like his draft record for World War II.
And then there he is again.
There's him. Yeah, I don't have the flight record.
All right. Well, you had a bunch of stuff.
That's fine.
sitting
I'll
out
just
there.
talk about it anyways.
All right. There you go.
Yeah. So the Dr. Henry Beecher, he worked at Camp King. So Camp King, we kind of talked about it last episode, but where they did most of the experiments was actually like a house, and there was no flag, no sign that said U.S. Army, nothing. They dressed in regular clothes, nothing. So even the people in town didn't even know what was going on in the house, but it was like a safe house. And so the artichoke technique, there's a few things that they need for the technique. So they need, a room, but then they need another room where they're able to monitor and put cameras and microphones and all kinds of stuff. A bathroom is also required because apparently the artichoke technique causes a lot of nausea and people that have to go to the bathroom and everything else.
Yeah.
I think that's about it on what was required in the safe house, but they had to have like a monitoring area, and then they had to have like areas where they actually did the testing, and then they had cells, like basically prison cells and stuff for like Soviet spies they would catch in West Germany or whatever. But Henry Beecher so the first thing he did when he got to Camp King, he basically went over all the concentration camp records and the experiments with the mescaline and what happened and everything else. And then after he went over the reports, he then traveled all over Europe basically, and this is around 1951. Like he met with Albert Hoffman at Sandoz in Switzerland, and then he would go all over. If somebody had experience in some sort of psychedelic research or something, he met with them. But then after that, they basically used Camp King as their experiment area. And he worked with like a few of the doctors that you mentioned, Kurt Bloma, all kinds of Nazi doctors, but several people. And then they would have like former Gestapo as the guards. Like they would like watch over and stuff. Like they were former Gestapo.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they had the doctors, of course, that were doing experiments during the war, working with the guys that had the records that he was reading, basically. And then he knew that the Nuremberg Code wasn't under American law, so he had free reign to continue on with these tests. And I mean, this guy killed people all the time. There's a story of Frank Olson. He was at Camp King, and we'll learn about him next episode. He saw a guy die there. I think even several people die, and he was super traumatized by it. And he even told his friend, this was from his friend's mouth, that he was seriously traumatized by that he couldn't believe that he was a part of that. And basically they would just take, if somebody died, they would just take the bodies out and just burn them.
Yeah.
But Henry Beecher, there's even a case where he killed somebody with mescaline. And I guess he gave the guy just a super high amount, and the guy just was rolling all over the place and freaking out, and then he eventually just died. there's not a lot of information on it other than basically that.
Was that the one where you said you were even trying to like look into like how it even killed him? Because you found that interesting that it shouldn't have even really killed him, probably, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I didn't think mescaline was like.
I have no idea. I mean, I could see it possible, but maybe it's not. I don't know though.
I know there's particular like ingredients that are similar to like psilocybin. I can't remember the name of it. That if you actually have too much of it, it'll kill you.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that last time too.
Stories of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's similar because mescaline's like peyote, so it is that's the ingredient that peyote. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I never found anything. Yeah, never found anything. And yeah, so there's a case of the guy dying, and there's not a lot of information on it, but. So there is a documented case of this guy, and Henry Beecher, he was an anesthesiologist. He actually was one of the first anesthesiologist professors at a particular university. I don't remember which. I mean, this guy, and he was like supposed to be known for like his, like upholding, not going against people's consent and stuff like that, and that kind of stuff. Even though his whole career, he was doing the complete opposite.
Oh, it's like politics.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was involved with the LSD research several times. He experimented on prisoners later.
He was probably like somebody like an advocate of patient rights. I'm getting at, but then like
yes,
and then he does all this horrible stuff to all these people.
That's exactly it. And there's actually some good articles on the site Alliance for Human Research Protection, and they have several very in-depth articles on him that I have linked here. And yeah, and nothing ever happened to this guy. Nothing came out about what he did until after he died, just a year or two before it came out in 1977. Nothing. Yeah. So everything that he did, nothing ever happened. It's just crazy. And this happened to basically all of them. Nobody ever served a day in jail. Nobody ever got in trouble. Nothing. And they've ruined thousands of people's lives. It's crazy to me. This Henry Beecher, all these doctors.
Oh yeah, like even like the people that I even read before. I mean, some of them, it's like, oh, well, because of their experience and what they did, they got a pass and they came over. It's like, what the?
Yeah, they just literally erased it. They saw what they did and didn't care one bit.
That's so bizarre.
It's super bizarre. I don't get it, man.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if just like, it's like you have to look back at humanity then, and it's like, did you know this? Or not? Maybe it wasn't like known. I don't know.
I still feel like people still don't know. Because, I got to say this real quick. People will constantly say, well, why would they do that? Why would they do this on whatever particular subject you want to say? Chemtrails or something.
Uh-huh.
Well, look what they did. Look at all this documentation, everything that they've done in the past. Oh, but they're changed. They're never going to do, they've never done anything like that since. No, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's still going on.
Yeah, they're just doing it better now. They've changed the way that they're doing it, a different technique. It looks different. Just like everything else has changed with the times. It's just that stuff has as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can find videos of them, the CIA literally affecting culture and certain cultural things, like they affected the abstract art world. Like they were the ones that were buying the art and actually created the whole abstract art scene and everything.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then we have the music connections and bands and
Yeah, I was just thinking of like the whole like industrial music with like processed church type stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, which goes back to Manson again, which I think you mentioned Manson earlier.
Yeah, with George Estabrooks.
Yeah. Do you have anything else, or you think maybe we just wrap it up there?
I think we wrap it up there, and then we can get into Frank Olson next time.
Yeah, George
which is
White.
in Artichoke, and then it kind of just flows into MKUltra from the Frank Olson thing because it just speeds up from there.
Yeah, I got Olson. I got George White. I even have West. And Morse. So I do have some stuff even for the next one. So
yeah, that's all perfect.
Yeah,
because all those go together.
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, I think definitely have another interesting one coming up, and I look forward to covering that one with you, sir. Thrash, my man, let everybody know what's up and where they can find you at.
Yeah, it's Thrash Talk with Thrash on YouTube and Instagram. There'll be a link just down there. I guess just click the link and follow it.
Gotcha.
Eventually, there'll be a few videos up here pretty soon.
Yeah,
with a co-host.
And there will be there's a good chance that like by the time these drop again, like I said, these things won't be dropping until later on. You could even have like a Twitter or whatever by then. So just keep an eye out. Well. Keep an eye out in the bottom. He may or may not have links to other stuff. So eventually, but by the end of the series, I guarantee you there will be some stuff there. And
there'll be stuff there.
And thank you very much again, Thrash. Like I said, it was very informative for me, very interesting. I know it's kind of repetitive, but it's just like very eye-opening as well. It's just like, oh, another Nazi doctor, this one.
It's so interesting. It just keep coming up.
Yeah. And that is the end of the MKUltra series, episode 3. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.